class, welcome to EdVantage. My name is Huntsinger, and today we'll be talking about different types of groups. So sociology, we're very interested in group dynamics, but first we have to define what is a group exactly. Well, a group is a collection of people that come together for a purpose and has a subjective sense of we, and they meet somewhat frequently. We distinguish between different types of groups in sociology. So the basic, the most simple group is a dyad, which is a two-person group. And George Simmel, who used to study dyads and triads when he was alive, said that a dyad is the most intimate type of group, but it's the most unstable. And what he meant by unstable is that it just takes one person to leave the group for the group to fall apart. The second type of group I'm going to be talking about today is a triad. Now a triad, just like a tricycle, the word tri is three. So a triad is a three-person group, and George Simmel says that this group tends to be more stable because one person can serve as the mediator when other group members have a conflict. However, the flip side of this is that one person could often be what he calls an isolate, which means that they tend to be the odd person out. So in order to understand what a group is, we need to understand what a group isn't. So there's different collections of people that don't fit the definition of a group. The first one I'm going to talk about is an aggregate or a crowd. So an aggregate is a collection of people that are temporarily congregated for a specific purpose. For example, people waiting for the bus or people at a rock concert. Now these people are temporarily brought together, but they don't have a subjective sense of we, and they don't have a sense of unity or a common purpose. So you may never see a person in an aggregate or a crowd again. The second type of collection is called a category. And a category are people who share similar characteristics. For example, baby boomers, people who were born between 1950 and 1965 would be considered a category of people. Now, baby boomers might share similar characteristics because of the time period they grew up in, but of course not all baby boomers know each other or have a collective purpose or a sense of identity. Another example of a category would be Trekkies, or people who are really into the show Star Trek. Now they might have similar characteristics, but of course not all Trekkies know each other or meet on a regular basis. Sociologist Charles Horton Cooley distinguished between primary groups and secondary groups based on their purpose and their closeness or intimacy. So your primary group are people who are very close to you and they serve expressive needs or intimate needs. These are typically personal. They don't serve really an explicit purpose except for support and love. Typically these groups are enduring and they're intimate. So typically people in your primary group would be your friends, close friends that is, or people in your immediate family. So people who you would call if you're having a bad day and needed some support. To contrast, a secondary group typically are larger, typically are shorter lived, and serve an explicit purpose and have an end date. So for example, people in your secondary group could be your classmates, it could be people who you work with or coworkers. And so this type of a group typically tends to be less intimate, tends to be bigger. You wouldn't necessarily call your classmate or your coworker if you're having an especially trying day, although you might. And that's the thing, is that people in your secondary group can become people in your primary group depending on how the relationship evolves over time. We also have in-groups and out-groups. So an in-group is a group that you feel personally connected to. This is your tribe. This is the people who have similar characteristics that you know that you have a common values or common cultural traits. And an out-group are people who you don't feel connected to. These are the other, so to speak. So people that are different from you in some fundamental way. So you can see in-groups and out-groups and the conflict that often arises between in-groups and out-groups all over society. For example, conflict between different sports teams. In Arizona, for example, we have Arizona State University and we have University of Arizona that are rivals. And so if a Sun Devil or an ASU fan meets a Wildcat or a U of A fan, there might be some sort of tense or rivalry depending on how connected they feel to those groups. Another example would be political affiliations. For example, the Democrats and the Republicans. So if you know anyone who has strong political affiliations, you might ask them how they feel about the other political party, and you'll probably get a passionate earful. So when talking about in-groups and out-groups, there's this effect, this social psychological effect called fundamental attribution error. And this is when we tend to think of errors or mistakes situationally for our in-group, but not for our out-group. So say, for example, you are driving on a road and someone from your out-group, so someone you don't know, or someone who might be a Red Sox fan and you're a Yankees fan, and you can tell because they have a bumper sticker on their car, and they cut you off, right? You're likely to shout obscenities, maybe have an inappropriate gesture, yell, honk, react with anger. However, if you were the one in the reverse position who accidentally cut someone off, or someone close to you who is in your in-group, you might blame it on the situation or the environment that caused that. Oh, well, I didn't mean to, I didn't see them, I have a pregnant wife that I'm trying to get to the hospital who's in labor, I'm really, really late to this important thing. And so you tend to be more generous with your explanation, tend to look at things situationally versus the individual traits. So your reference group is kind of like a measuring stick of people that you compare yourself to, and you may or may not belong to your reference group. So for example, a reference group for me may be other sociology professors, and I may compare myself to see how I'm doing compared to them. So do I have higher or lower pass rates? Do I make my students laugh as much as they do? Do I have higher grades or lower grades than they do? So it serves as a sense of social comparison to see how you're doing compared to others who are similar to you or others who you aspire to be. So for example, a young girl who plays soccer on her middle school team might look at the women's soccer team, the American women's soccer team, as their reference group and try to emulate them or be like them. Your social network, usually when people hear this term, they think of social media right away, but for sociologists, a social network is much broader. So a social network is just people who you have social ties to, and this varies in strength or intimacy. So you have weak ties and you have strong ties. These are just people that you know. So your strong ties usually would be people in your primary group, people that you connect with on a regular basis, and your weak ties would be people who might be your acquaintances or people who maybe you went to high school with but haven't talked to in 10 years, but hey, you're friends on social media with, and you check in on them occasionally. So for sociologists, you may think that your strong ties are way more important and your weak ties can't really get you anything. However, there's this term in sociology that we call the strength of weak ties. And what we mean by this is that your strong ties are great for emotional support, but when you're looking to further your network or to gain more opportunities, whether that's in the workplace or in a romantic relationship, your weak ties can really help you in that area. So usually your strong ties, they know about the same amount of information or the same types of information that you know because you talk on a regular basis. However, your weak ties may be able to introduce you to someone who you want to get a job with who you don't know, or they might have friends in their network that you might be interested in dating. So we don't discount how important a weak tie is. So the next time one of your old high school friends follows you on Instagram, it's not a bad idea to follow them back because of the strength of weak ties. Okay, well that is all for this video. Tune in next time when we talk about conformity and group size effects. Thanks for watching. Bye.